All right. So as far as the Constitutional Convention goes, they had planned after the Annapolis Convention the year before to meet in Philadelphia. Shays' Rebellion actually prompted more states to actually show up to this meeting. Okay, it was initially the Philadelphia Convention of 1787. You end up with 52 delegates showing up. 12 states are represented. Remember which state is not there?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. Okay, now here's the thing about most of these guys. Most of the delegates from the states are fairly educated. Okay, good. We'd kind of want that a little bit, right? Also, they're fairly wealthy. Okay, so right there, people say, "I knew it. We're elite. It's the elite theory of democracy." Not. You can't really just judge it that way. Okay. Which, by the way, the wealthier people, those tended to be the people who were, in fact, educated at that point in history. All right, so these guys show up, and they say, well, if we're going to, they want to amend the Articles of Confederation, but Rhode Island keeps that from happening, right? So they have to, they decide to come up with a new form of government. And so they request somebody to come up to Philadelphia to preside over this convention. Who do they ask?
I don't know, Alexander Hamilton?
Washington?
George Washington.
That was.
And he's like,
Big guess.
it's summertime, the crops are in, so he goes. All right. James Madison actually personally asked him to do that because they were neighbors, and Madison believed that all of the delegates would respect Washington. I mean, imagine he's presiding over it, okay? That doesn't mean he's actually debating and saying, this is what we should do. He's, okay, the Honorable Mr. Sanders from the Commonwealth of Virginia, you may speak, that kind of thing, okay? But also, they're going to respect when he says, your time has elapsed. Right? I mean, you're going to tell George Washington, no. So he was sort of I would say a calming influence on that, okay? Because tempers were rather high, all right? Now, our Constitution, and here it says, compromises deemed necessary for adoption or ratification of the Constitution are represented by the Great Compromise, Electoral College 3/5, and the compromise on the importation of slaves. Okay, these are the major compromises that we have in the Constitution. Okay, and we're going to talk about each one of these. I want you to say, some books say our Constitution is a flurry of compromises. Well, we got 4 big ones. Okay, this first one, the Great Compromise or the Connecticut Compromise, they debated the issues surrounding that for like 6 weeks.
That bad?
Well, it is, because, I mean, you're talking about like a 9-week convention. The Great Compromise deals with the representation of the states in the government, okay? So it's kind of a big deal, but just list those compromises down and we'll talk about each one sort of individually. I left my clicker. I love the clicker.
Why does Connecticut spelled like that?
Oh, sorry. So sorry.
Wait.
Well, it does connect Rhode Island to New York.
Okay, what does it cut? Ooh. Got him.
Well, Connecticut cut off that Shays' Rebellion with their militia, didn't they?
Oh, darn.
Wasn't those a New England state named after, like, England?
Connecticut, I believe, is an Indian name, and it was the name of the river that flows through the middle of it. All right, everybody got the list down?
Excuse me, teachers, if you have any 11th grade students with the last name in J through L, please send them to the cafeteria right now with a pencil. Last name J through L to the cafeteria with a pencil. 11th graders.
Mr. Garden, do you have a Band-Aid?
I don't even have tape.
Man,
Or
so we need to do a
Kleenex.
ghetto Band-Aid.
Well, you know, I used to make MacGyver ones. Here's a Kleenex and some tape.
I would do
You
it.
guys-
I do have some hand sanitizer that smells like tequila.
And you have a staple.
And a staple. That might not help. All right, everybody good here?
Ordinance.
All you gotta do is list them.
Okay, there we
I just got my notes. What is the three-fifths?
Wow.
Oh, the majority kind of thing.
Hmm?
Isn't the three-fifths like the majority? No, that's
No.
not what it was.
No, 3/5 has to do with counting slaves for representation.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a null compromise now. But it was very important to this. All right, so we're going to talk about the Great Compromise first. Like I said, this was the one that they argued the longest. Okay, the Great Compromise, this deals with the representation of states in the federal government. That's what the Great Compromise deals with, okay? Now, there were competing plans that came up, and that's why this was debated for so long. Yeah, it was called the Virginia Plan, which called for representation based on the population of each state. Sometimes the Virginia Plan is referred to as the Large State Plan, okay? But that's the Virginia Plan, okay? They called for 3 branches of government, which that sounds familiar, okay? They also called for a bicameral legislature, okay? A bicameral legislature simply means there's 2 different bodies in the legislature, which is like what we have today. We have a bicameral legislature. There's 2 houses. We have the Senate and the House of Representatives. Okay? Also, they said supreme national government, separation of powers. This is sort of the Madison model. Separation of powers, that means we're going to have checks and balances. We're not going to have one all-powerful branch of government. Okay? Then you got the New Jersey Plan.
go. I see what you did there.
Okay? Also known as the Small State Plan.
I get it.
Okay? While New Jersey is not the smallest of states, the smallest of states was not even here. Basically, the New Jersey Plan called for equal representation in the legislature for every state. Okay? The smaller population states, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Connecticut would probably be in that one too. They were concerned that these populous states, if it was just by population, that they would dominate the government and that their voice would not be heard. Okay?
Low-key high.
So, you know, it's a valid fear. Okay? There were limited and expressed powers of the national legislature. Okay? So very limited, the powers were going to be limited. I won't say very limited, but they're going to be limited, but they're going to be limited to only what's expressed in the Constitution. And the states retain their sovereignty.
So is it just like those two states that have a plan, or?
Well, we call it that because the delegate from that state presented it. Okay, it doesn't necessarily say, like, the reason we call it the large state and the small state plan is probably because those guys those states maybe conferred. But this was sponsored by a delegate from Virginia, that was sponsored by a delegate from New Jersey. Yes, ma'am.
I know you told me this before, what is sovereignty?
Sovereignty, independence.
Okay.
Wait, question.
Yes.
What does bicameral mean again?
That there's 2 houses in the legislature.
Oh.
And actually, the New Jersey plan, it doesn't say it up there, it wanted a unicameral legislature, so just 1 house in the legislature with equal representation. Which seems good enough, okay? Now, the New Jersey plan obviously benefited the small states, okay? Because the population, in the Virginia plan, population was all important as far as your representation. And so the New Jersey plan made sure that everybody had an equal say, which sounds all nice and warm and fuzzy, doesn't it? Okay? And the Virginia plan obviously benefited